So, you've browsed the mechanical keyboard subreddit, and now you've developed an insatiable hunger for your very own fully custom mechanical keyboard. Well, you've come to the right place, because in this video we'll be helping you accomplish this as easily as possible and without completely breaking the bank. The first step in formulating your custom mechanical keyboard is choosing the size. If you don't know what size you want, try determining what key clusters you desire and go from there. Key clusters include arrow keys, function row, media keys, or numpad. For first-time builders, I would recommend going with the 60% as they provide the widest range of parts and interchangeability. Now on to ordering the parts. A great place to start for this would be the KBD Fans website. On the site, you can filter by the size that you are building for and find parts with a range of style and price. You can also purchase DIY kits, which will most commonly come with everything you need to build a keyboard, minus the switches and keycaps. Speaking of that, let's quickly go over all the parts you need to build a keyboard. First, you need a case to hold everything in. Cases are commonly available in aluminum, wood, polycarbonate, plastic, and etc. You can pretty much use any case in the size that you're using, as long as you know that it'll be compatible or the screw holes will line up with our next part, the PCB. The PCB is used to send signals to your device when the key is pressed. There are two kinds of PCBs, solder and hot swappable. For a soldered PCB, you need to manually solder in the switches, which can be quite the hassle if it's your first time building, not even taking into account buying the proper equipment to do so. It's for these reasons that I highly recommend beginners to stick with hot swappable PCB, in which the switches can be easily swapped in and out of. Next, you'll need a mounting plate. Like the name suggests, the mounting plate is used for mounting the switches on top of for stability, and it goes in between the switches and the PCB. These can be commonly found in aluminum, brass, polycarbonate, carbon fiber, and etc. For beginners, I would recommend aluminum, and if you're willing to spend a bit more, I would recommend brass for a slightly sturdier typing feel and slightly better acoustics. Next, we have the switches, which are the actual things that you press to log a keystroke. There are quite literally hundreds of switches to choose from, so finding the one for you might require a little bit more research. To start out, there are three different kinds of switches. First, the clicky switch, which is a tactile bump and creates an audible click on actuation. Second, the tactile switch, which has a tactile bump but does not create a click noise on press. And third, the linear switch, which is just one smooth press down. It's important to note that while the tactile and linear switches don't create a clicking noise on actuation, they still make a satisfying noise when you press all the way down. Then we have the fourth category of switches, which is Cherry MX Browns. People who have these on their keyboard include sadists, instigators, cult followers. No, I'm just kidding guys, but seriously, don't get Cherry MX Browns. Finally, if you're going to use your keyboard in something like an office space, you might want to consider silent switches, which have a rubber piece at the bottom of the top of the stem of the switch to stop it from creating the bottoming out noise. At the end of the day, it's not really just a matter of preference, but I would still recommend taking some time to find out the right switch for you. Next up, we need the keycaps, which are the things that go on top of the switches and are displayed front and center on the keyboard. Keycaps have an even wider range of options than switches, but finding a set you like is much easier because after all, it's just aesthetics. To find a set you like, I would recommend typing in keywords for a certain color scheme or theme that you would like for your keyboard. The only thing that you might want to look out for when buying a set of keycaps is to make sure that they are compatible with the key layout that you are using. Another thing that you might find when looking for keycaps is a few capital letters at the beginning of the set, and this just refers to the profile of the keycaps, meaning their unique shape. Finally, the stabilizers, which are the things under your spacebar, shift, enter, and backspace keys for stability. You can purchase these in the kits for the size that you are using, and you want to make sure that you get screw-in stabilizers over PCB mount or pop-in stabilizers, as they are usually cheaper and much better quality. Now that it's been a year and your parts have finally arrived, let's move on to the building. We start with the stabilizers. If your stabilizers come assembled, go ahead and take those apart. On the stem, there are two little pieces of plastic that stick out. We can go ahead and clip those off, then put the stem back in the housing, the side that has two holes facing the side of the housing, with the hole for the wire. In this video, I'll be skipping modifications like lubing, but I'll go ahead and leave a link in the description for how to do it if you guys want to give it a shot. Then, put your stabilizers on the PCB with the screw side of the stabilizer in the smaller hole. Once you have all the stabilizers on the PCB, you can go ahead and throw on the plate. I'm not going to go over how to solder, but here's some quick tips for those of you that are. Solder in switches on each section of the keyboard before soldering in all of them for stability. For temperature, go for about 680 degrees Fahrenheit or 360 degrees Celsius. Routinely clean off your soldering iron and make sure to have a well-ventilated room because solder fumes are toxic. Once all the switches are in, we're ready to put it into the case. Before we do put it in the case, make sure you put on your rubber bump-ons so that it doesn't scratch the back. Most of the cases you'll find are tray mount cases, which will have screw standoffs in the bottom of the case. Your PCB will most likely have the holes for these, which you can screw right in. Now just stick on those keycaps and you're done! In general, for mechanical keyboards, I would highly recommend downloading VIA, which you can use to test and configure your keys and lighting, but if you don't want to download anything, you can also test all of your keys on keyboardtester.com. That's all from us, so enjoy your mechanical keyboard, welcome to the rabbit hole, and leave any questions you have about the process in the comments.